Welcome back once again to a podcast about movies. I am Jacob Barber. That is Austin. Austin, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good, man. How are you? I know you've got some new job prospects coming up, so that's good. I'm happy
Yeah,
for you, sir. Just wanted to congratulate you again on that.
thank
So
you,
sounds
thank
good.
you.
Good, I know you kind of got out of work, but you're able to find something quickly, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah,
And
thank
get
you.
back into it. So I hope it works out well for you. And yeah, no, I've just been working myself and watching movies and. Finished up one of our movies we're going to be talking about today just a little while ago, and yeah, no, we're doing something unique, yeah, that we did from a little spin-off of our last episode that we did.
Yes, we are, and what he's talking about is, if you remember, a couple weeks ago we did our blind ranking, so it was our second one, but this time we added a twist. We each picked a number
Mm-hmm.
from our rankings, and those that corresponded to a movie, and then we decided afterwards just to add one of the leftovers.
Why
So
not?
so we've got one that we ranked, one that we haven't ranked from each of our genres: horror, and animation, and those
Mm-hmm.
four movies will be Poltergeist, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon,
Mm-hmm.
the Lego Movie, and The Incredibles. And the way they will be decided, since they were decided by a wheel,
Mm-hmm.
in the order in which we talk about them will also be decided by a
Ooh,
wheel. And I multiplied the slices. There's not like that many movies.
yeah, right.
Um,
All right. Find out what we're going to talk about first. We have there's some interesting connections between these movies that I didn't realize till afterwards. We'll talk
oh
about
yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
especially actor wise, that I
Right.
didn't realize till I started watching them, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. So there's some crossover actors and stuff, so it kind of worked out really well. Yeah, I like it.
So the wheel has right. The wheel is spinning.
Uh,
We'll just jump right in. The first
yeah.
movie will be
Ooh, right off the top,
yeah,
Poltergeist.
the
All
only
right.
one I had to watch for the first time, and I watched
Ah.
it this morning, so it's fresh
Ooh.
in my mind. Yes,
Yes.
we will be talking about Poltergeist, released in 1982.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't get that wrong.
Directed. No, that's correct.
Okay.
Directed. Get it right, by Toby Hooper, not Steven Spielberg, as attested by many of the cast and crew and other friends of Toby and Steven Spielberg. But yeah, this is one that I do have a story about the first time I watched this one, Jacob. The very first time, not this recent time, but the very first
Right.
time I saw it. I ended up, I used to have a setup in my room back in my old house where I had my laptop kind of across the room, and I could lay in my bed if I wanted to and put something on my laptop, and I had some good speakers so I could still hear everything. And I had never seen Poltergeist, so I put on Poltergeist. My laptop at the time had like a DVD-ROM drive, and I turned off all the lights and like cranked it up. And I was really disturbed by a lot of things in that movie. I got really freaked out by a couple of things, even as I didn't even watch this till my 20s. I was really late to this movie.
Hmm.
And yeah, this is one that you know arguably might be one of the best, obviously PG horror movies ever made, because a lot of people don't realize
Yeah.
now. Normally, if this was rated today, it would easily be a PG-13.
Oh,
But
probably.
but at the time, PG-13 didn't exist in 1982. Did not exist till 2 years later. But yeah, and this is a movie that my mom refuses to watch ever again. That I believe she saw this in the theaters and refused to ever sit down and ever watch it again. So this is one I taunt her with. I'm like, Mom, don't make us watch Poltergeist. All right, we're gonna watch that movie. But yeah, I've seen it once or twice here and there since then, but it's not one I've gone back to a lot. But this definitely gave me a reason to bust out my new 4K that I bought of Poltergeist and give it a look see. So yeah, but I'll let you kind of jump into it first because this was your very first time watching it. So
It
yeah,
was,
what are your
and
initial thoughts? Yeah.
yeah, and I thought it was really good. I thought just first off, because I'm always one like, no, those were really good performances. So that's usually the first thing that sticks out in my mind. And for kid performances, I thought the girl who played Carol
Heather o-
Ann,
Heather O'Rourke.
Heather
Yes.
O'Rourke, who unfortunately passed away way too young.
Yes.
And on further, diving into more of the actors in it, like, there were a couple. And one was both were very unfortunate situations.
Yeah.
But no, she was great. Um, I thought, yeah, as far as child performances go, I thought she knocked it out of the park. Like, for what, 5 or 6 years old, and And she was good. Craig T. Nelson, who is not the first. This will not be the first time we talk about him.
I know, yeah, and I didn't
funny
even
how that
really
worked
realize
out.
it initially when we spun the wheel and we spun the two. I didn't even think about it at first, and then after we logged off, I was like, "Oh, we're going to talk about 2 Craig T. Nelson movies. That's weird because he doesn't make a ton of movies,
Right?
We happen to have probably two of his biggest movies he ever made, which is The Incredibles. So, yeah, 2 of his biggest ones. But yeah, it's a live action Craig T. Nelson. But yeah, he's really good in this movie. I like him.
He is. And then I like that it mostly stuck to the house. We venture out of the house a few times.
But it's mostly
it's
one location movie.
Mostly one location. Yeah. And I thought some of the effects, even though it was the 80s, like some of them you could tell, but then like some of them where like the guy's face was melting off.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. That creeped me out. Because I watched it this morning and I was like, I'm hungry. I kind of want some breakfast. And it was like halfway through, and then we got that one.
Yeah.
I'll wait for breakfast.
Yeah,
I can wait now.
He's about to eat like a steak or something too, and there's like maggots all over the steak, and then there's maggots on his face, and then they're under his skin.
I don't know what made me cringe more: the fact that there were maggots on the food that he was trying to eat, or the face melting.
Right.
But
well, that's the great thing, Jacob, about and why I love that I've always loved 80s horror movies, because yes, sometimes you'll get sort of the superimpose and some of the computer effects, not really computer effects, but some of the stuff that they would do with that, like obviously the the monster at the end, the kind of skeletal monster that comes out of the closet is like a special effect, and things like that. But when they wanted to do practical effects, they had to get creative, and a lot of these 80s movies have these really cool creative special effects. Like obviously when the dude does the face scene, it's obviously some kind of animatronic, like sort of a thing. They kind of cut to it. It's almost like in the Terminator, the original Terminator, when he's doing the surgery on his eye, they cut to like an animatronic like Terminator. But still, it's real. So it has a little bit more impact. There's real stuff falling off into the sink, like he's really like pulling things off. We can talk about it. It's always been kind of a weird thing about this movie that there are possibly real skeletons in the swimming pool at the end and real bodies, because that is a thing that Jo Beth Williams, who played the mom, insists that she heard from the crew that they saved money because it was too expensive to make like rubber skeletons, and that they got real ones. So another reason why this movie might have a curse on it, which we could talk about as well, or something, or some people believe there was a curse. But yeah, apparently they used real skeletal bodies, and so in the scene when she's in the pool being surrounded by them and screaming and swimming amongst them, and it's very reminiscent, by the way, of another Spielberg movie, of Raiders, the year before. If you remember when Marion, they go through the wall, when they're in the Well of Souls, and then the bodies kind of fall on top of her, and it's like all the arms kind of grabbing at her. It's very similar to that, and it's very, very similar. But apparently, again, like all of them coming at her, it's all like right there, it's real, which is why I love like 80s stuff, because they just had to get creative. There's certain parts that are gooey, when they come out the rope and there's like purple slime and goo all over them. It's gross and weird, and you have to imagine kind of what is on the other side of that light, when they're kind of in the other side, because we never really get to see.
Yeah, which I thought I loved that aspect of this. Like this is definitely more psychological. This isn't beating you over the head with kills. I don't think anybody dies in this movie.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it's a bloodless, bodiless movie, unless you count all the dead bodies at the end that are popping up in the graves. But yeah, like there's no, it's not like a slasher thing. Nobody dies. But yeah, it's a lot of psychological, because you get stuff with Heather O'Rourke where you can hear her voice for a lot of it. And there's creepy stuff where she's just like, the man's coming towards me. He's getting closer. He's getting closer, and they're screaming back and forth. And it's just really good psychological stuff.
Yeah. And she made me believe that she was in danger. Like she did. Yeah. I know I mentioned it already, but man, for 5 or 6 years old, like I think she nailed it. The kid who played, was it Robbie?
Robbie.
I feel like, typical child performance, nothing.
I'll say this though about Robbie, and something I've always known about Robbie. I think he performs child terror very well.
Yes,
because I think it's very realistic. The one scene that freaked me out the first time I saw it specifically was the scene where he's about to get eaten by the tree. And just there's a certain way where he's going like, "No, my God, god! Oh my god! It's hurting me, Daddy! Please! No, no,
Yeah,
no!
yeah.
Like there's a weird thing where he's not doing the over the top screaming. It's more of a practical, like, oh my god, I'm about to be eaten by a tree, kind of a freak out, and I totally get it.
Hmm.
But yeah, the tree scene is what like really freaked me out because I think one of the biggest fears I would ever have is dying via something eating me. I think that would be a pretty horrible way to go, of like just something eating you. And yeah, that was the one that
Yeah.
really grabbed me even more than the clown stuff at the end. But I think he even does the clown stuff at the end pretty well too. The
And
famous,
it's funny that
clown doll.
it's the tree that almost gets him because we see earlier in the movie he likes climbing trees.
Yes.
So it was a good connection. I think yeah. So yeah, I think like you said, he does the child terror really well. But like when he's just hanging out with the family or whatever, like it's your typical kid performance. But yeah, he definitely like ramps it up
Mhm.
when he needs to. So
Hey, he's a
he's
big
really good.
Star Wars fan, so I can appreciate that in
Well, there you go.
1982. And given the fact that when this movie came out, really there was only two Star Wars movies because Return of the Jedi hadn't even come out
That's
yet.
true. Yeah, that was
So
a few years
there's
later.
no Ewoks in the background or anything like that. He's all in on like Darth Vader and Chewbacca and C-3PO and R2. He's got stuff all over his room. It's always fun to go. I can see all the merch that was available at the time in his room that he's got, and obviously Spielberg and Lucas are buddies. So like
Right.
Spielberg, so using Star Wars stuff in there, that's fine.
Yeah, and much like The Incredibles, which we'll talk about, I think they nailed like the family aspect here because,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, all three kids at breakfast, maybe they are throwing food at each other. They're,
Yeah.
the oldest one's like, Mom, I can't eat that. I'm the oldest
Watch out,
daughter, like, I
yeah.
can't eat that.
She's
They're
like, I
cold
can't eat
grain.
that. I got to go leave the movie for a little while so you can just focus on the other two kids
Yeah,
because she's off at her friend's house for most of the movie until she shows up at the very end, which is
and my whole thing this whole time was because we hear later, that the mom is 31 and the daughter is 16.
yeah.
So, like, did Craig T. Nelson remarry, or did they just have a kid really young? Is that ever established?
I don't know. Yeah, it's something I never really thought about unless she just was a teenage mom either,
Yeah.
but she might not have been with Craig T. Nelson. We don't know that. So we don't know exactly what their situation is or if even Craig T. Nelson is the father of the other kids, if they're both the kids. I don't know. Like we don't know the situation, and that may be intentional. That's kind of a Spielberg touch. Maybe we don't know that. But I think Jo Beth Williams, yeah, she's really good as the mom. I think she gives a pretty great performance. Her chemistry with Craig T. Nelson is great.
Yeah.
I just like some of the scenes where they're smoking weed together in bed.
Right. I wasn't expecting that. Like,
like they're chilling in bed, smoking weed, laughing, reminiscing, reading stories, watching TV. And it's like, you don't see that in a lot of movies, just parents where it's always the scene, Jacob, and tell me if you know this scene. It's always them sitting in bed, both reading a book with their glasses on, talking about whatever, and they turn the lamps off and they go to bed, But like this one, Craig T. Nelson's kind of like hanging off the bed, and she's like, kind of laying with, and they're smoking the weed, and he's like being silly, like jumping on the bed and like being stupid, and they're just like hanging out like a couple that likes each other, and it's just interesting. It's something you don't see in a lot of movies. It's just a couple that is just being silly. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's just like parents just, who like each other, and it's refreshing. It's nice.
Yeah, I like that too. I liked I don't remember the character's name, the short lady that comes in with the glasses.
Well, it's Zelda Rubinstein who and this is Tangina, is her name.
Right.
Yeah, she's kind of the psychic medium, conduit person, whatever you want to call her. And again, not the first time we'll talk about Zelda Rubinstein tonight because she's in Behind the Mask of Rise of Leslie Vernon, which was her last movie, which again, I didn't realize till I rewatched Behind the Mask. I was like, oh, that's right, she is in that movie as well. Like, that's interesting. Okay. But yeah, she doesn't come in, and I always forget that she doesn't come into the movie till about almost 3/4 of the way through it.
Yeah.
Because you have the other team, the other like paranormal team that comes in first with the other doctor, and then you have the two like kind of crew guys, setting up the equipment, and it's like not really working, and they're trying to like do stuff, but it's like they're not really helping at all. And then she doesn't come until the end, but man, when she comes in, she owns the movie, man.
She does, and then I think it ramps up. You messaged me. You forgot how how awesome the finale is, and I'm like, oh, now I got something to look forward to. And yeah, that final, when she enters, and then we think everything's okay finally.
It's a false finish. You think
Yeah.
it's all done. They get Carol Ann back. They're in the tub. They're cleaning up. They're kind of like, okay, we're gonna move out now. We're gonna leave, and then like we get another finale, like kind of a fourth act finale. Where the graves come up, and everything kind of goes crazy, and the monster comes out. All the stuff, and like it gets bonkers for the finale.
Yeah, and I felt until that finale. I always thought like Craig T. Nelson going off with his boss or whoever that guy is. It just seemed random.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's come out, and then we figure out like, hey, it's not the first time we tried to build a house on dead people. And so, there's that connection. I was like, why would he leave when this is all going on at his house? Like why would he leave? Like, what if something happens and you're not there? This isn't the time of cell phones. Like, you can't just be like, oh, hey, let me call your dad real quick. Oh, sorry, we can't. It's 1982. I thought it was weird, and then they made that connection. So I think it's really well written too.
Yeah.
And then they like, I think they pulled it all together. Yeah, no, that false finish gets me. I feel like Carol Ann just has that like this creepy smile on her face the whole time while they're moving or they're packing boxes, and she's just smiling the whole time. Like, like they mentioned, like, I don't think she remembers any of it, and I'm like, maybe she does, and she's just trying to put on a happy face.
I think they explore that in the other two movies because she's in 2 and 3. 2 brings back pretty much all of the cast. It's Craig T. Nelson's show, but then it's in them in the new house, and I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember just being kind of okay. But the best thing about it being Kane, this creepy priest kind of guy that shows up at the door. Kind of a character in the movie and being kind of like the primary antagonist and being really creepy, that being all right. And then there's a third one with Tom Skerritt from Alien, and it's them in like a high-rise apartment, sort of like Evil Dead Rise, sort of a thing. But it's still Jo Beth Williams as Carol Ann, but it's just kind of a different setting in like this apartment building. So they're kind of
interesting.
But I think they explore the thing of like what she remembers from, they call it the other side in the second one, like what she remembers from it, like her memory's kind of spotty, like it was all kind of like very dreamlike for her, while she was in there. So I mean, they talk about that in the sequels, but yeah, I like that this one they kind of leave it more, again, ambiguous as far as what she's seeing. We just get kind of some descriptions. We don't even really see many of like the spirits that are attacking her. We don't see any like visualization of that. If there's like people, if it's just the creatures we see later that sort of come out of the closet here and there, or just if that's the form they're inhabiting, because it also possesses, like we said, the tree. There's obviously the famous clown doll, like we can talk about, that Scary Movie 2 kind of spoofs in that film.
And I think the clown is the cover for the remake.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because they updated it and they kind of redid it, but I think the original one's just it's creepy, and it's really weird because he's got it sitting in that chair, but he's like constantly covering it with his jacket. It's like, why do you have it in the first? Put it in the closet or whatever. Put it away. Like, I don't
move it.
Yeah, just move it somewhere else. It's staring right at you where you got it sitting right there. That's odd. Put it in a box or something. I don't know. Yeah, put it away. But still, it makes for a nice little finale. He goes ham on that thing at the end, man. He's like ripping the stuffing out. He's like tearing his head off. He's tearing the arms off. Like, he's not putting up with that shit anymore, and I kind of like it. So he's just had it. But yeah, it's a really cool, just again, it's a product of its time. You can feel the Spielberg influence on it with, again, the suburbia of everything. It feels like this movie could take place on the same street as E.T. the same year.
Yeah,
you feel like the kids from E.T. on the bikes could be right up the road. I mean, when you literally look at the settings, it's like California suburbs. So,
yeah, I can totally agree with that. Yeah, I'm glad this was the one that fell at number. What number did I choose? Number 7, because I really enjoyed this. And we talked about doing a best of 2023 so far show in June, so this might not be the only time I talk about this movie because I really enjoyed it.
Okay, nice. As far as like discoveries
really
and things like that, yeah, nice.
Yeah, so
well, that's cool. Well, yeah, no,
right.
Poltergeist.
Good movie.
Yeah, I know it's one of Jordan's favorite movies. He really likes for horror. But
Okay.
okay,
Oh, we're going to
the
the.
other horror. All
I
right,
didn't put the whole title on there.
no, that's fine. We are talking. This is my Scream Factory Blu-ray of Behind the Mask: The
Behind
Rise of
the
Leslie Vernon.
Yes, which I also rewatched. I had seen this a couple times before, but I wanted to rewatch it
Yeah.
because I do think this is a solid sort of a mockumentary style movie, kind of chronicling the um, behind the scenes, I guess, of what a serial killer would go through leading up
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the big event that they do. I forgot that what's his name, Robert England, is in this movie as
Yeah, not a
Doc
whole
Howard,
lot, but
but
yeah, he's in there. Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, you said you had just watched this for the first time recently, right?
I watched it for Halloween for the first time. I was kind of late to this movie, and then I rewatched it again for this. I've actually seen it twice pretty recently.
Nice.
But yeah, like this is an interesting one because yeah, you get some. Uh, it's an interesting thing where this movie, for anybody who doesn't know the premise, yeah, it's a mockumentary following this guy Leslie Vernon who wants to be a famous serial killer essentially, and he's telling this crew that's interviewing him how he's going to do his first big kill, essentially his first big setup and kill at this house and this farmhouse and all this kind of stuff, and how he's learned from the greats, and the greats being the killers that exist in this universe.
Yeah.
Michael Myers and Freddy
Mhm.
Krueger and Jason Voorhees, who are all real in this universe. They talk about how in Crystal Lake, people are scared. Nobody lives there anymore because they never know when Jason's going to pop back up and kill a bunch of people. People in Haddonfield, are scared of Michael Myers every Halloween, that he's going to come back and start butchering people. And people on Elm Street in Springwood, Ohio, are scared of Freddy Krueger to dream about him, give him power. So I mean, it all exists in this world. He openly talks about those legends, and he talks about the people who attempted to be legends and just couldn't quite do it. He has a mentor who I forgot. Well, I didn't know the first time I watched this movie, but he's really great. Scott Wilson, who's in The Walking Dead, like who's really great. Is kind of like his mentor. He was like, I guess he was. They implied that he was a serial killer, kind of in the 60s or something, or in the 50s or 60s.
Something
Like
like
he
that.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, he was like a serial killer who got away with it back in the day, mainly because they sort of imply that back then there wasn't security cameras and DNA, a lot of like sophisticated DNA evidence, and that you could get away with a lot more and be a little sloppier. But now he's had to learn how to adapt to modern aesthetics essentially, and he kind of mentors him.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the basic premise. And then yeah, I feel like this movie is underseen, so I don't really want to like go into
Too much, yeah.
too much. But I mean, it is a 17-year-old movie. So
Yeah.
if you haven't watched it, sorry, spoilers. 'Cause, yeah, I feel it is one of the ones that's more underseen. Which
Yeah.
for me to see an underseen horror movie, that's rare. But no, I first saw this movie. It was probably 10 or so years ago, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how I came across it, but turned it on one day and yeah, no, really, really enjoyed it. I thought the performances were good. I like the mockumentary style, kind of like we mentioned on the Tier Ranker episode recently with Surf's Up. Like, I wish there were more movies like this. I'm sure there are. Maybe I just need to look into them because I like the mockumentary style when it's done right. And I think it's done right here.
I mean, I think the most famous one of the last 10 or so years is like What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of and the most famous one from way back in the day is This Is Spinal Tap, the Rob Reiner movie. Right. Chronicling kind of the fake rock band. That's kind of maybe the most famous version of that.
Yeah. So maybe we do an episode on that. It gives me an excuse to watch some more of these.
Right.
We'll see. But no, I thought it was a really interesting idea to kind of just go behind the scenes and see, is this what Michael Myers is doing? Is this what Jason's doing? Like, I don't think so.
No.
But to see like how calculated a serial killer really can be. But my one gripe is like, well, if you don't like what they're doing, why don't you just go to the police? You know where they live. You can take them right to them.
Well, and that's the one thing with the main reporter chick is he's doing all this, but I guess, they sort of implied that he hasn't killed anybody yet.
Right.
So, and he's talking this big game, but he hasn't actually done it. So, like, he's acting like an expert, but he hasn't actually pulled the trigger on it yet. And I think she thinks he's like got all this stuff planned out, but I guess until he actually does anything, she like, what are you gonna say? Like, they're
Right.
gonna bring him out to the farmhouse, and so what? He has all his nails, he's nailed down on the windows, whatever. But he could just make
I
up
mean,
whatever excuses he
he is
wants.
also supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I was like,
Yeah,
there's something
it's a
wrong with
weird
it.
thing. Yeah, with the Robert Englund character, then like knows who he is, but he's kind of chasing him. But I guess he doesn't. Again, he knows he's got like mental illnesses and things, and he's this other person, but he can't really do anything about it. I guess because nobody believes that, or I guess again he hasn't killed anybody yet.
Right.
So and by the way, his Robert Englund's name, he's kind of playing sort of the Dr. Loomis type character in this movie.
Yeah. Dr. Halloran.
Doc Halloran, which is a double Shining reference because
Yeah.
Dick Halloran was the Scatman
Mhm.
Crothers character, and then he called the kid Doc the whole movie. So that's just a double Shining reference. But yeah, like he's kind of half chasing them in the movie, and they have a few encounters with him here and there, like diners and stuff. And yeah, Leslie Vernon has kind of picked out his own little mask, that he wants to become iconic, the one that's on the cover,
Yeah,
kind of this,
I dig
really
the mask.
creepy sort of, yeah, it's like,
I dig the look.
yeah, kind of a skeletal thing. He's got his signature weapon, which is kind of a farmer's side kind of
Yeah.
thing. He talks about how important all the signature stuff is because, Michael has his mask and everything.
Mhm.
And then Jason's got his hockey mask. You got to have a look. You got to have a gimmick.
Right.
You can't just be a guy. You got to have a persona, essentially. Like in wrestling, you got to have a gimmick. You got to have a character.
You gotta have an identity.
Yeah, right.
And so in most ways, it's cliched like that, but I think it works for like the story they're trying to tell. Like sometimes cliches work, and sometimes you need them. I think this really picks up. Like I like the mockumentary style, but once they like, no, we're done, and then they go into like the finale where his plans go into action. But this time there's 3 new people involved that he wasn't accounting for.
Right.
I think it's real as a non, like I don't want to say non-horror fan, but like I'm not a.
You're just a casual horror
I'm a casual as a casual horror fan. I really enjoyed it. I thought, I thought the kills were good. I thought even like when they were planning and talking about it, some of the pre-kills, I guess, were cool. Like him smashing the window and shoving the guy's face on the door, and he's just with the blood coming out. I thought they were good. They were decent. I liked that one of the camera guys is like, hey, we can beat this guy, and he sacrifices himself. I like when the guy takes courage.
Well, because he says, well, he didn't anticipate somebody just running off and saying, "I'm gonna go call the police. Run, come and get me." Like whatever. He didn't play because she knows all of his plans at this point as far as what he's booby trapped and the exits that he's blocked off, and he's like pre-cut tree limbs so you can't like climb down a tree, all this different stuff that he's done to prep. But again, like you said, he didn't anticipate for the camera crew and the documentary crew to be a part of that. It was just supposed to be this original group of people.
And I thought it was good that like when you're in the moment, I guess you're just gonna like pick up anything that can potentially save you, because she picks up one of the weapons that he told her about.
Yes.
And it's like, well, you're not gonna like think like, oh, which one? What? No, you're just gonna pick up something that you think can save you. So, I thought, I guess there was a sense of realism. I mean, however real you can get in a movie like this,
right?
But no, I think this is a decent horror movie that I think people will get a kick out of. I think it's like middle of the road horror. It's not one of the greats, but it's not like downright awful where I'm like, oh,
I'll tell you what it is. It's a really clever like meta movie. If you're a horror fan, if you're a fan of, if you've seen the major franchises, if you've seen the major kind of slasher movies and things, I think it pairs well with something like Scream. I think you could watch Scream and this kind of back to back. Maybe watch this first because Scream is kind of the more all-timer,
Right.
But at the same time, Scream references Michael Myers and Jason and all that kind of stuff, you know. But in this other world, like it's a world where they do exist, you know, that sort of thing. And then you can watch the movie where they just kind of reference those movies existing. But yeah, I mean, they're both kind of done that smart style where they know the rules and they kind of explain things and they point out the tropes about having to predict human behavior, which I think when they see this, they're gonna run this way, you know, or they're gonna try
Right.
this door, they're gonna try this, you know. He's like planning it all out in his head, you know, like the human psychology, which is kind of funny when you watch slasher movies. Or there was one little bit where I thought it was hilarious because he talks about doing cardio because he's like, you know how hard it is to walk really fast and try to keep up with people running at full speed. He's like, it's really, really hard. And he's like, I thought that was really clever, you know, because they show him later doing that like power walk, you know, sort of thing that,
Right.
you know, that you always see in, you know, slasher movies where it's like, how is Jason just taking long walking strides and these other people are running full speed and he catches up to them? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they kind of point that out and kind of make fun of it. And you know, if you know all that stuff, and even if you're a casual horror fan, I think you can have a good time with it. It's clever enough; you'll pick up enough of the references, and I think the performances are really good. You know,
Yeah.
I think Nathan Bessel, you know, is really good as Leslie Vernon. Like I said, Scott Wilson is really good as like his mentor guy. You know, like there's good charismatic stuff in here, so I think there's enough to kind of carry it forward. You know.
Yeah. And I kind of wish the sequel came to fruition. There were talks of a sequel, which I don't know how they would have done it based off the ending, but
Sure.
I guess it just never came to. It was supposed to.
No, and this director, I looked him up. He's done like one other independent horror movie, and really not much else since then. So I know sometimes these guys go to horror conventions, you know, and kind of do like the Leslie Vernon panel, you know, and they all go as a group or whatever, you know, do that because this movie does have a cult following, like it does have a following in the horror community. But yeah, he hasn't really done much since then, which is kind of unfortunate. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a way you could probably do it and make fun of the killer comes back, you know, cliches,
Right.
you know, sort of thing. But yeah, there's a way you could do it. But yeah, I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day.
Yeah, it's been 17 years, and
It's
who's really talking about Behind the Mask except for us two?
I mean, people talk about it here and there. It gets mentioned in like I see it in Reddit threads. So it's like, hey, recommend me an underrated kind of lesser known horror movie. People will be like, oh, Behind the Mask is really good, you know, but like, you know, it doesn't get talked about as like the great horror movies of the 2000s or anything like that.
Yeah. And if anybody is wanting to watch this, somebody has uploaded it to YouTube, which is how I watched it earlier today.
Gotcha.
So, right. Which is weird because there is a part where they show there's a brief nudity, and I felt like that wasn't allowed on YouTube, but apparently they don't care that much.
Well, I mean, The Room is on YouTube, and The Room has a lot of nudity, so
That's true.
I I don't know. Maybe if they don't catch it if it's, you know, not an official thing, you know. So
all right, so
all
we got
right.
2 left, 2 animated,
and
we're on to The
right.
Incredibles with that, which is this is weird because the order in which I put them on for the banners is the exact order that we are going in.
Nice.
Yeah. So, The Incredibles released in 2004. My favorite Pixar movie, which, you know, it's been that way since I can remember. It used to be Toy Story, then The Incredibles came out, and now it's been The Incredibles. I've loved this movie for years. For those of you who don't know what The Incredibles is about, first off, what have you been doing with your life? Second of all, it follows. You know, superheroes are pretty much banned. They're illegal. Supers are illegal.
Well, you know, the lawyers got involved, and that's what happens when lawyers get involved. They ruin everything. So lawyers got involved. There was people started figuring out they could sue people in litigation. There's a whole montage of every other superhero getting sued for something.
I saved you. I didn't want to
I didn't want to be saved. Yeah, no, you know, it's all the same stuff. We talk about the superhero movies, but they don't really show. You know, you messed up this building, you know, you took out this thing, you know, you caused a lot of property damage. So, you know, we have to put you in. But, you know, they don't like, you know, take him out of life or anything like that. They just put him in like a hiding, you know. It's like you got to go away for a little while and just be regular people for a little bit. You know what I mean?
It's like witness protection for
witness protection for superheroes. You got to just go be a family for like get a real job.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really love that this is, I think, more than a superhero movie. This is a movie about family
Mm-hmm.
at its core.
Yeah.
Because like we said with Poltergeist, I think this nails the family aspect. Like, yeah, dad's kind of, maybe thinking about work or what used to be, um, and mom's kind of dealing with the kids, and the two older siblings are fighting at the dinner table because
Yeah.
they're siblings and that's what they do, and the baby's just like, yay.
The couple has lost their passion for each other, because the glory days are behind them. Mr. Incredible's a little schlubby, he's put on a little weight. Elastigirl's, she misses the old days. She doesn't get out and use her stuff powers anymore. She's just vacuuming the house and cooking the food and taking care of the baby. Yeah, and maybe Mr. Incredible's having a midlife crisis, at the, yearning for the old days, when he was, fawned upon, and and he was the center of attention. Yeah, now he's just an office dude working at an insurance company.
Yeah, and he has to kind of hold back because he's super strong, but he can't really show that because he's supposed to be this office worker who is getting bullied by his boss, who's like 8 times as small as he is.
Wallace Shawn.
Voiced wonderfully by Wallace Shawn. I think.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh man, Wallace Shawn is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, great story about family. This has a great villain, with a believable backstory. Like, this is somebody who, idolized Mr. Incredible, and Mr. Incredible wronged him, and is like, well, I wanted to be like you.
We should say rightfully so.
Rightfully so, yes.
He is,
He's getting in the way.
Much like we talk about in the Rocky movies, where Rocky doesn't win the first fight, rightfully so. Mr. Incredible, rightfully so, tells this kid to go home because he's a kid and he's getting himself into dangerous situations that he shouldn't be a part of. Like, you are a kid. I don't care what kind of silly rocket boots you strap to your feet. You're not a superhero. You can't go around stopping bank robberies and saving people from burning buildings. Like, you're a literal child. So, like, I'm sorry, I'll put it as nicely as I can, but go home, kid, and get out of the way. And yeah, of course, like,
of course, that's not what he remembers.
That's not what he remembers. He just remembers how much he was, told you're not a hero, you're not, or whatever. And yeah, he's a villain with no superpowers. He has to rely on technology and his brain and his, inventions, which is what he does. He puts all of his effort into creating these machines that are built to kill superheroes, which is pretty, this movie has a lot more darker moments than I remember, for what it is. When he's scrolling through the computer and seeing all of his friends that have been killed by these machines, like, it's pretty dark, and he's like, oh my God, like, he kills this one and that one and the other one, it's like in X-Men Days of Future Past, when they're flipping through the files, and sees all the ones that were killed by the government, things like that. So yeah, they're not afraid to say that, this person was killed or that person was killed. It gets a little darker.
Yeah. So I think we need to talk about also some of the supporting side characters, like Edna Mode, voiced by Brad Bird. Amazing character.
Yeah.
Yeah. No capes.
No capes.
And we see why. Superman, you might want to get rid of that thing.
Yeah, Batman might want to get rid of that thing.
Yeah. Frozone, who I can't hear anybody else but Samuel L. Jackson voicing that character. I don't think it. That whole back and forth between him and his wife, like, people still quote that to this day, and this movie's almost 20 years old.
Yeah.
I think Frozone, like, if they wanted to do a spinoff with just Frozone, I'd be all for it.
Right.
If they wanted to do like a Disney Plus series, of maybe some shorts with him, I'm all for it. Samuel L. Jackson, he's doing a series for Marvel, so he's not against doing series. Sure. And he's getting up there in age, so why not just use your voice? You don't have to do anything physical.
Right.
He's got to be what? He's got to be in his 70s now.
Oh, he's in his 70s now. Yeah, he is. He didn't start acting until he was in his 30s. So he's in his 70s now.
75. Yeah, he'll be 75 this year. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, he can only do so much more, before he's gonna look like Steven from Django Unchained, for real. But yeah, no, it's a great cast of side characters. Yeah, like I said, Frozone and Syndrome is a really fun villain. What's her name? Is that Mirage? Mirage, is that her name? Or
Mirage,
yeah, Mirage.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's kind of the person who sort of is setting all the secret missions up, and
Yeah.
transporting Mr. Incredible, and of course, it sets up kind of it's not a love triangle because Mr. Incredible doesn't put any moves on her, but
Right.
it's the dynamic that
It's
Elastigirl thinks something's going
mhm.
on, as any wife would probably think, especially when your husband is all of a sudden working out and looking a little better and going off, mysteriously to all these insurance conventions and
Yeah,
things like that.
another business trip. What?
Yeah, right. I mean, and that's things that people deal with in real life, like it's a jealousy thing, or yeah, if people sneaking around and not being truthful with their spouses, it's all stuff that adults can relate to, which is what makes a
Yeah.
great animated movie, is if you can put in those themes that the adults can relate to as well, and their families and their relationships.
Yeah, and I think The Incredibles does that perfectly. Like, this isn't just one of my favorite animated movies. This is one of my favorite movies. Period. It's in my top 20. I think this is incredible. No pun intended.
Right.
Um, for all those reasons, like, as because I was getting in my teenage years when this first came out. So like I wanted to see it because it was a superhero movie.
Sure.
But now as I'm getting older, like I'm recognizing all those adult themes that I probably didn't when I was 14
Yeah.
when this movie was released. So I think this movie has aged well. I think it's got a lot of really cool like action scenes.
Yeah.
For an anime movie, it's still the best Fantastic Four movie that we've gotten.
Mhm.
We'll see if that's still true in a couple years when they finally join the MCU.
I don't know. They haven't been able to crack the code yet in several movies, so I don't know. They just
Yeah, well,
they can't crack it. I don't know what it is about the Fantastic Four dynamic, but yeah, it's very straight. But yeah, I mean, they all use their powers in creative ways. The way
mhm.
Elastigirl, does certain things in scenes. They'll be falling out of a plane and she turns herself into a parachute. Like that's cool.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And then they get to the water and she turns herself to a boat while Dash uses his
Yeah,
super
it's
speed to
so
kick the
great.
boat, go. Yeah, like
And
there's
Violet's got her force field that
yeah,
she uses when they're on the island, and
yeah.
it's so cool the way they come together. And again, going back to that family dynamic, is like, yeah, we might argue, we might be at each other's throats all the time, but when we need to, we can come together, work together because we do love each other.
Yeah.
And um, you know, I yeah, it's really great, and I'm glad we got a sequel, even though it might have been 13 years too late, 14 years too late. Um,
Mhm.
I'm glad we got to see these characters. I'm hoping we see more of these characters. Um, Maybe in Incredibles 3. Who knows? I mean, if they can do Toy Story 5, they can do Incredibles 3.
I'd rather have Incredibles 3 than Toy Story 5, honestly. Yeah, I'm kind of I'm
I
cool
just
with them
'cause I
upping
think
the
there's
Toy Story
more
rights.
you can do with these characters than you can
Yeah.
with a
Well, and
Woody.
again, it's one thing, and I've talked about this before, Jacob. I have. I wish they had taken some kind of time jump. I understand at least initially picking up where the other one left off. That's fine, but then I wish there'd been a time jump after that.
Mhm. Yeah,
I wish
and I get that.
I
You
would.
could have
I'm
done the
okay.
same story.
Yeah, I know exactly. You can do the same story. Like again, pick up. With them taking out the Underminer. That's cool. Hey, we pick up where the other movie left off. Now, 10 years later. You know what I mean? Let's put
Especially
Dash
since
and
the voice actors are 10 years old.
exactly. Since they're a little older, let's boost it up to where you've got Violet and Dash, or maybe around college age, or at least upper high school or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe Dash is in high school, Violet's in college. Maybe she's going off to college. Jack is like maybe Dash's age now. Something
Yeah.
like that. To where maybe they're still figuring out his powers, seeing what he's doing with them, how he's dealing with that. Maybe it's like at the end of this movie, maybe he's got so many powers he doesn't know how to control them. He's
Right.
popping off left and right. He's turning into
We
things at
flashback
school.
to him fighting the raccoon because
Yes, exactly. And you can do the flashback. You can still do that. That's fine. And yeah, like maybe he's dealing with it in school. He's turning randomly into a metal person at school, and he has to run away. He's still turning into the demon creature every now and then, whatever. Like you could do that. You could still have the stuff with Elastigirl doing some mission. I think you could do a similar story, but I would have liked it if we did kind of a time jump. Like I just would have liked that to see. I think it would create a different dynamic for the family because
Yeah.
the parental relationships are different with kids versus when they're like high school and college age. There's different things, there's different dynamics there. There's different things with what kids are going through, their attitudes towards life, then wanting to branch off and be their own person, and maybe rebelling a little bit, or Dash probably wants to go out and be a superhero on his own, and do his thing, and maybe he gets into some trouble, maybe they both get into some trouble and the family has to come back together to fight something. There's a way you could do it.
Yeah,
there's a way you could do that, and I think if they do an Incredibles 3, you have to make that time. I just think you have to.
Yeah, we can't.
You have to. You cannot do it. You have to jump at least 10, 15 years. You have to jump and do something like that. So I'd be all for that. Let's just do the time jump.
Yeah, you can't be like The Simpsons and just stay the same age.
Right. Because even Craig T. Nelson was starting to sound a little older in that movie, Holly Hunter, and that's fine if you do that to match it, Like I know Craig T. Nelson's probably in the 70s now.
He'll be 80 next year. He's 79.
80. So yeah, if they're gonna do it at all without recasting, they would have to do it pretty damn soon. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's one of those things. Otherwise, they'd have to get somebody that kind of sounds like him.
And Holly Hunter is 65. Yeah, so they're getting up there, and even the I'm sure the kid voices they're adults now, so they're not going to sound the same.
Let's make them into. They don't have to be full grown adults, but let's get them into. Their upper high school, college age, where their voices are changed, they're a little bit older, let's get going. Let's change the character, looks a little bit. Let's get Jack older, cast somebody to do his voice, there's ways you could do that. And I think it'd be a lot of fun, but back to this movie. I mean, this movie still, like you said, still really, really works. There's even a little scene that I like. That's such a husband-wife thing where they're going to fight, do like the final fight, and they're in the RV, and she's just like, take this exit. He's like, no, wait, not that exit. Wait, that one will go downtown. Well, you told me to take that exit. No, I meant to take the other exit. They're just like arguing like a husband and wife do in the car. It's just like little things in the midst of all this stuff. Yeah, it's really fun. And you have the nice little callbacks throughout the movie with the kid on the tricycle. That's fun. Who just wants to see something cool. There's nice little stuff throughout the movie.
The stuff with the babysitter.
Yeah, the babysitter stuff is great. You could almost do a whole short film of just their adventures that they were having, in the house, much like the raccoon thing. What was going on in that house while they were gone the whole time. For sure. Yeah, you could have a little short film about that.
Yeah, and Bradbury did an excellent job with this movie.
Yeah,
he really knows how to pick him, because I think other than Tomorrowland, which I haven't seen, so I'm just going based off word of mouth.
I saw it in theaters. It's got a lot of good ideas. It just doesn't come together in execution. It's got some really interesting stuff where there's like this Tomorrowland in this other dimension in front of us. They just have to like travel into it, and then like it's got good ideas. It just becomes kind of a generic movie in the second half. Like it's got some really cool stuff at the beginning, and it doesn't stick the landing. But I can forgive him when he made Incredibles, when he made Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which is my favorite Mission Impossible movie. Like he's got a pretty good track.
He's got the Iron Giant is
still a lot of people's favorite 90s animated movie. It's a one people still talk about today. Yeah, I mean he's got a resume.
Yeah, let's see his directed works. Did he? I think he helped on Ratatouille. No, he directed Ratatouille. He directed Ratatouille. Yeah, so his movies, Ratatouille, both Incredibles, The Iron Giant, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's very selective with what he does, and I think other than Tomorrowland, he doesn't miss. So
yeah, I mean, and I know Tomorrowland. Some people do dig that movie. I haven't seen it since the theater, since whatever it was 2015. Yeah, 2015. I haven't seen it since then, so I don't remember a lot about it, to be honest. But I just remember it being kind of underwhelming. That's all I remember.
Yeah,
especially coming off of Ghost Protocol, which I loved. So
right,
which
we'll be talking about soon.
Once Mission Impossible comes out, we'll talk that franchise, because Jacob needs to get caught up on that franchise.
Dude, I've seen the first two, and I've kind of been waiting. We're just gonna.
I know you're gonna wait to marathon those, because number 3 is where I think it really takes off. Kind of like how Fast 5 kind of took off that series. Like I think part 3 really takes it in the new direction that it goes, and then part 4 is awesome, part 5 is awesome, part 6 is awesome. Like it's a great series, like from there on. So yeah, it's a lot of fun and some good directors involved there.
All right. Well, we don't have to spin the wheel for this one because we've only
Okay,
got one
we're
left.
talking about the Lego
The
movie.
Lego movie. Yes.
This was my wild card going to this one. I have not seen this since theaters.
Okay.
And I remembered some things, but not a lot of things about it. So this
Right.
was my big wild card coming into this episode. I'll say that.
Okay. Yeah. I just finished this like an hour before we went live. Actually, I had some time. I was like, let me rewatch the Lego movie because why not?
Yeah.
And I think I enjoyed it more this time than I did the first time. There's a lot of good humor in this.
Kind of the same. I didn't remember a lot of this. I remembered having a good time with it when I saw it in the theater. But again, I didn't remember a lot of stuff. And like to me, what got me was the script and how funny it was. It was really funny. This movie's hilarious. Like it's great. Like all the lines that I think kids would not get at all, and the little references, the pop culture stuff, just some of the clever like puns and jokes. That I think would fly right over kids' heads, and I think that's definitely the Lord and Miller influence on this movie and the script that they wrote for it.
Yeah, this is everything the Emoji Movie wanted to be,
right?
Because it took an existing thing and made it great. I was so skeptical going into this, like movies based off existing products, like they don't have the best track record. You know, video game movies haven't worked for the most part. You know, so very very skeptical, but. No, they nailed it. The voice cast, like there's a lot. It's a stacked cast.
Yes.
You know, Chris Pratt, who seems to be the voice of everything nowadays.
Right.
But he's great as Emmett. Elizabeth Banks as Lucy or Wild Style, whatever you want to call her. She's great. Liam Neeson as Good Cop, Bad Cop. If they didn't do a spinoff of Lego Batman, Good Cop, Bad Cop is where they should have gone. I don't know. Maybe Liam Neeson didn't want to. I don't know. Maybe if he wants to, because I can't remember if he was in the second part.
I haven't seen the second part, so I couldn't tell you.
It's not as good. I think, but it's kind of hard to match this because this one was really good. And it's a cool story. About
well, it's the Matrix meets Star Wars because it's like at the core of it, it's like a wizard kind of mentor guy trying to find the one essentially, but the master builder, which it's the one from the Matrix. There's other dimensions and realities, and you can do weird things, and it's like, but it's also Star Wars because it's like a hero's journey and him discovering his purpose in life and wanting to do something greater than basically being an NPC essentially, in this Lego world, and kind of, and having these people that help him out along the way, so it's kind of that. And and then Will Ferrell is Lord Business or Professor President Business. I think he's a ton of fun. I think he's having a great time. I kind of giggle every time they say Craggle in this movie for some reason. Just the way he says it, like bring out the Craggle. Like it's just
the way they use like everyday products that people use with these, like, just twist the words just enough, like the polish of Nail.
Well, and bring me the exact zero sword. Exact zero sword. Like, the way they twist all the words in the movie for all the things are a lot of fun.
And the piece de resistance is just the lid for the crazy glue.
Oh yeah, no,
it's so fun. Like this is just a fun movie, and I think it's like the Incredibles. I think there's stuff in there that adults and kids both really dig, because who doesn't imagine, like, as a kid playing with Legos and just making them come to life? And
sort of the pseudo twist of the movie, it's that it's a kid playing with all these Legos, doing this story on the table or whatever, and it's playing out in the movie. Essentially it's what he's doing, and he's flying all the ships around, and he's playing with the characters and doing all this and taking them to the different worlds around the room, like it's playing out in the movie, because then when they do the live action stuff, you see that that's what it is, and that Lord Business is just a send up of his dad, essentially. And when he realizes that he's the bad guy of the story, he has to have this realization. It's a nice, sweet little moment between him and his kids. So yeah, I mean, that's a cool little twist of. It's also a little bit of a Toy Story element, of like Andy playing with his toys, and how if you remember in Toy Story 3, when they the opening scene of Toy Story 3 is a big cinematic version of the scene from Toy Story 1 when he's doing like the Wild West like hold up with Sheriff and pork chop or whatever and all that kind of stuff. And then like but what we see from the toy perspective is like this big train chase and like all these explosions and all that, but it's just him playing with the toys, like just slamming things together or whatever. And it's the same thing here. It's just him playing with all this stuff, but we see this big cinematic action sequence, and all these things, as he's playing with everything. I thought it's kind of cool. I'd kind of forgotten about that aspect of it. Like I remember the live action stuff, but I didn't remember like the total context of everything about it. Yeah, and it's really clever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think much like Poltergeist and Incredibles, I think they nailed like this kind of a dynamic because there are, parents out there that are collectors and this is my stuff. Don't touch it.
Yes.
But it's like, hey, it's also something that we can bond over.
Yeah.
My son and I, and then at the end, what this means? Your sister has to play too. Yeah. And so then the big Legos, which I think is where the sequel goes. So much like The Incredibles, like it just picks up and kind of uses what the end of this movie. That's the premise for the next one, which I think is cool. I just don't think they execute it as well.
Yeah.
But they had such big shoes to fill that it's kind of hard because I rewatching this, I think this like the song says, everything is awesome.
And I like the little jokes. Like I talked about it the other night briefly, but there's sort of the idiocracy type thing of all the NPCs that watch this one TV show called "Where's My Pants," and it's just like it's just this one guy over and over again going, "Honey, where are my pants?" And that's what everybody talks about. Like, oh, it's so funny when he said, "Honey, where's my pants?" Like it's just all these like nothing characters just going about their day, their routines and doing what they're told and following the instructions, and all that kind of stuff. And him, breaking out. It's kind of like Free Guy. It's a better version of Free Guy. I'm not a big fan of Free Guy, but okay. I think this is a better version of Free. I think Emmett's a better Free Guy than Free Guy. I'll just put it that way. I'm lukewarm on that movie at best, but I like the concept. But I think Lego Movie kind of does it better.
I can see that. Yeah, I don't know what it was about Free Guy. I loved that movie.
Okay,
but no, I totally get why.
Yeah,
why you? Yeah, I can totally see that, but. Yeah.
Well, we have to talk about the fact, they introduced a great side character that became its own movie of Will Arnett's Batman, Lego Batman in this movie, which he steals every minute he's on screen. He's so good. And again, I kind of prefer him as like a side character in this movie.
Yeah.
To me, just because, and also I could tell there's a different direction because this movie didn't make me physically motion sick like the Lego Batman movie does. And I think that's also due to the direction because this is Lord and Miller both directing and writing. The other one was Chris McKay, who just recently did Renfield. But that one's just more hyper and like cutting all over the place and I can't keep up. And it kind of like makes me sick to try to keep up with everything.
Right.
But this one, it slows down when it needs to slow down. It picks up when it needs to pick up. And Will Arnett is used perfectly because it's just him being this character that comes in, kind of halfway through the movie and he chimes in with some good lines here and there, and it does some cool things, some uncool things that he pretends are cool, like trying to hit the the button with the batarangs, over and over again. And nailed it.
First try.
Yeah. The little song he sings where he's just like, parents are dead, but being rich helps me cope with it. Like I thought that was hilarious. That was really funny.
Give me all the black pieces. I only work in black. And very dark gray.
Except for dark gray sometimes. And that's a nice reference to like Adam West and like the Dark Knight Returns and the other versions of Batman that we see that are not always black. It'd be funny if you said blue too, because there's been some blue ones as well. But like just the little Batman-isms and he still helps out and does his thing. Yeah, he's used perfectly in here as a fun side character.
He's great. Good cop, bad cop is great.
Yes.
I completely forgot about Benny. I think Benny is hilarious. Like he just wants to build a spaceship.
The Charlie Day like spaceman character.
He just
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
to build a spaceship, and he's like, he gets so surprised. Oh, you guys aren't telling me no?
When he's finally flying it at the end, he's just going spaceship, 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 spaceship. Like as he's flying the space, he's just in like a state of bliss,
Yeah.
flying his spaceship that he built. Like it's a lot of fun. Yeah, the little side like Channing Tatum plays Superman and Jonah Hill is Green Lantern, and they have a nice little buddy thing, where he just like they both get stuck in the little prison thing next to each other, and he sees Green Lantern there. He's like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on? We're gonna be neighbors." He's like, "Does anybody have some kryptonite?" Like I thought that was funny. Yeah. Like there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, instead of a 23 Jump Street, I wouldn't mind a spin-off of just their characters from Lego Movie.
Yeah. No, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think they set up a lot of good characters. I think you could do a lot with characters from this universe. What was his name? Vitruvius or something like that. Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman has some really good deadpan lines too, like throughout the movie. Like he's really funny.
Yeah, when he comes back as a ghost.
Oh no, the ghost thing killed me, and I remember it brought back a memory that killed me in the theater, where there's literally a string that lowers him down, and he just goes, "Ooh, ghost," and then he says his little spiel or whatever, and then they just slowly lower him back up because it was, "Ooh, I'm leaving." Like it's just, it's really, really funny. Like he's really good in this way. I wish he would do more comedy. Yeah, he's really funny.
Yeah, a lot of good side characters, and I think, like at the end of it all too, like there's just a good message here. Yeah, like Emmett's just this normal guy, and most people would say, yeah, there's really like nothing special about him, but there can be, So I think it's a really positive message for kids, but adults can get a lot out of it too. I think it's one of the best movies that kids and adults can enjoy together. Yeah, I think it really works because, I know there's a lot of adults that still play with Legos, like a bunch of those like collector sets, like not just like random Legos, like hey, look what I made, like they do, in daycares and stuff like that. But let's build the Millennium Falcon. It's got 32,000 pieces.
A Millennium Falcon, which is in this movie, and there's a nice little side thing with the Star Wars characters who they didn't get Harrison Ford, which sucks because it's kind of obvious because like Han Solo starts talking, it's not Harrison Ford, but they have Lando, and it's actually Billy D. Williams, which is great. And he's like, "Hey, old buddy, come on, what's up?" And then they actually had Anthony Daniels do.
I was about to say, if it wasn't, it was
no, it was it was him. It was
okay, cool.
Yeah, it was him. No, and they actually got some nice little voice. Again, stuff that maybe adults would pick up, but kids might not pick up. That it's actually the cameos. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it's. Yeah, like I said, it's a good message about, sometimes you got to play with the toys sometimes and, just have a little fun and be a kid and you can bond over these things and, not everything has to be permanent, too.
Right.
Like he wants to keep gluing everything together, which again, it's fun when he's gluing everything rapid fire. He pulls out the drawer. There's like 20 crazy glues in the drawer. I thought that was funny. But yeah, like it's good stuff, man. I'm so happy I rewatched this because it had been a really long, and this movie's almost 10 years old. Can you believe that? It's nuts, right?
Crazy.
But yeah, this is one that I would, if my niece wanted to put this on when she starts growing up, I'd be okay with her watching this movie, a couple of times. I wouldn't have any problems with that. Yeah, I do.
I'm so glad I decided to rewatch it because I had so much fun with it. Who knows? It might go up on the rankings. We'll see.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I think it's really, really well written. If you haven't gone back to it, man, like the script is really funny. Like I laughed a lot.
Yeah,
in the movie, and I thought it was just really, really clever and good puns. And I couldn't even name them all here. Just a lot of them are so rapid fire and just
right.
Watching, the Shaq stuff. I mean, like Shaq's in this movie, and he's like, he makes a catapult for basketballs, and it just doesn't do anything. They hype it up, and oh, that didn't work.
Like, they won't see that coming. Oh, shoot, they did see it coming.
The Unikitty, the rainbow cat is fine. It's funny. Yeah, like all that stuff is great. Yeah, like all the little cameos and stuff is a lot of fun. So yeah, this movie was just a good time, man. And I'd forgotten how good it was. I better rewatch it. Yeah,
I think we had 4 really good movies to talk about today. So I'm glad that's the way the wheel went. I'm glad we spun away from Frozen because while I enjoy it, this conversation would have gone a lot different.
I'm really glad I rewatched Lego Movie instead of Frozen. Let's just put it that way. I enjoyed rewatching Lego Movie. I would not have enjoyed rewatching Frozen. That would have annoyed me.
I was surprised it was even on the wheel. I'm going to be honest.
I just put it on there for you, so I don't know. I wanted to see what you thought of it. I didn't anticipate almost watching it. So,
yeah. So, we'll have to do this again for our next one, which you'll do another animated wheel for me, and I'll do a sequel or remake wheel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, dude, fill yours with sequels and remakes, one or the other, and there's plenty of both. So you could do any of those. You could do a whole wheel of like 30 remakes, horror remakes, if that, there's plenty of them, and there's plenty of sequels, obviously, to all those big franchises and everything. So
sure. We'll revisit this again sometime in the future, but. Austin presented me with an idea for our next show, and I thought it was a good kind of ties into something that's coming out soon. So why don't you tell them about our next
show? As of right now, we're not far away. We're a little under a week away from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. There's already been some fan screenings. There's reviews out there. The embargo's lifted. Pretty positive response from what I'm seeing so far. People saying it's a good finale, to what James Gunn has put together. So, we're going to review Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in 2 weeks. Give us a chance to go see it when it comes out, because I know Jacob's very excited for that one, and also we're kind of dreading what might happen in the movie. I won't say, but we'll see. But we'll talk about that. So what we'll do is we're going to build up to it during the episode. So because Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it's at its core, it's a space adventure, but it's one that encompasses a lot of different genres. There's action in there, there's comedy, there's sci-fi, there's fantasy, and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to build up to the Guardians review at the end by tackling 3 other space movies in the subgenres of space. So we're going to go old school with a space sci-fi movie, and what's more classic than 2001: A Space Odyssey? So we're going to talk about 2001: A Space Odyssey. I've got my big fancy schmancy 4K here. Yeah, it's a really nice pack. Really, really good. Movie looks great. We'll start with that. Go old school with some space sci-fi. We'll do some space horror, and I know what you're thinking. Not Alien. We'll get to that eventually, because I think eventually we'll just talk the whole franchise at some point. We'll do a franchise run through and talk about that and talk about all those movies. Maybe when that new Fede Alvarez movie comes out, because he's working on that right now, that new Alien movie. So maybe when that comes out, we'll tie it in with that. But we're going to do Event Horizon from 1997. Paul W.S. Anderson, who's normally a video game guy, mostly known for Mortal Kombat and the Resident Evil movies, but he did this movie called Event Horizon, with Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne and some other character actors that I think you'll recognize, Jacob. Kind of
okay, because I haven't seen it. So
it's a really fun one. It gets pretty gnarly, but it's a good space movie. I like space horror because literally there's nowhere to go. You're just kind of stuck. So it's always interesting how they get out of everything. But we'll do Event Horizon for space horror, and then we'll do a space comedy. And what better than Galaxy Quest? Kind of in a big sort of send up of Star Trek, so we can kind of talk about a little bit about Star Trek and sort of references. But a movie that has a great cast. So again, kind of an Alien time. We will talk a Sigourney Weaver movie, just not Alien. We'll talk Galaxy Quest and a movie that's really fun, and a lot of people in there that you might not remember: Rainn Wilson and Justin Long and Sam Rockwell. Like there's a ton of people in that. Alan Rickman. There's a ton of people in that movie. That movie's chock full of people. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk some Galaxy Quest again, building up to at the end of the episode. We'll do kind of a spoiler review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So we'll kind of do what we did this episode. We'll talk for 15-20 minutes about each movie and build up to Guardians. So we'll do some space adventures in 2 weeks.
So that's going to be fun. So join us in 2 weeks for that. Join us tomorrow, but not on this channel, but on the Take 3 Productions channel, because we will both be on the Rankum talking Joaquin Phoenix movies. I've got a few that I am hoping to squeeze in before.
I'm going to watch one more tonight before I go to sleep. I'm going to watch The Immigrant tonight, and then I watched You Were Never Really Here the other day. That was really good.
Oh.
Yeah. I rewatched We Own the Night, which is a fun one. Yeah, some other things. So, yeah, there's one that Steven mentioned that I might try to squeeze in tomorrow. It's a 90s movie that from his. I forgot the
Oh,
title.
yeah, I heard him mention about
It
that.
was a movie from like 97 or 98 that he's a big fan of that he'll probably bring up. So I'll try to squeeze that one in.
Yeah, I feel like there's some obvious ones that are going to make the list, and
Yes.
then there's a couple that I really want to push for. You Were Never Really Here is going to be one of them, and then Don't Worry, He Won't Get Far on Foot. I don't know if you've seen that.
Well, I might try to watch that as well because I know that's actually on a list of a show we were going to do at some point for actor blind spots.
Oh yeah.
For Joaquin Phoenix, that was actually on there. So if I did that, I could knock that out. But
There you go.
that may be a show where after we get the obvious ones out of there, if somebody pushes for them, then I'll probably just say yes. Most likely because he doesn't have like a ton of movies. I think a top 12 would be pretty easy for Joaquin. But yeah, that'll be fun. I did see Beau Was Afraid, so I don't know if we're including that.
I didn't realize it was a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, it is.
So I haven't seen it yet. So
it feels like 3 hours. I'll say that. Well,
okay.
It's an experience, man. It really is. If you're gonna see it, I would say try to see it in the theater if you can. Yeah. Because it's I don't even know how to describe it. It's just it's an experience. It's a trip. You know what I mean?
It's an Ari Aster movie.
It's an Ari Aster movie, yeah, for sure, but with less plot. I'll just say that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
I'm
a trip.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is gonna.
Yeah, he's great.
Have me interested in anything. So
yeah, but we'll be doing that over on Take 3 Productions tomorrow night. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and Monday, hopefully. Apparently, Jordan is sick. I feel.
Yeah, we'll see if we end up doing his sort of little mystery tier ranker that I did the pre-show for the other day. Yeah, that'll be. We'll see if that actually goes down. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be better by then. We can do that. Got some other tournaments. Later in May, kind of around the time we come back for a podcast about movies, we'll be getting closer to a 90s animated tier ranker, which I know you take lead on us. That's going to be a stacked decade. We could talk about a Brad Bird movie in there. We could talk about The Iron Giant for sure. That could probably come up. We'll see if that one makes the S tier. But we got some good stuff coming up here on the channel and the other channels. So stay tuned and check us out. This was fun talking. This was a good idea. Yeah, just kind of doing these movies. And next time we do another blind ranking, we'll do the same thing. We'll pick a number and then we'll spin the wheel again with whatever leftovers are on the wheel, and we'll put together another one because this was pretty fun.
It'll be a good time. And then just real quick, just want to shout out friend of the channel, Chad Webb. Congrats,
sir.
Your baby boy.
Yes.
That he looks happy and healthy, although he's a day old. But congratulations to you guys. I think you guys are going to be wonderful parents. So
yes,
congratulations to you too,
Chad and Carrie. Yeah, they're good friends of this community, and they've been on our shows before, and over on Movie Hero. So we wish them all the best. So with their new baby.
Yeah, so again, thank you guys for joining us. If anybody watched live, if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. And let us know your thoughts on these movies. Again, those 4 movies being Poltergeist, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, The Incredibles, and the Lego Movie.
All thumbs up. Nothing negative. All thumbs
up. All very similar movies.
Yes.
So,
movies with strange connections to each one. So, interesting. But it all worked out well. Yeah, some good rewatches, some good all-time classics. So, some good stuff in there.
Yeah. So, join us in 2 weeks when we go on a little adventure in space.
Yeah.
But until then, that's Austin. I've been Jacob, and this has been a podcast about movies. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.